Faith you forgot about. Faith you forgot about. Speaking to everyone in the room, and I want to explain to you what I mean when I say that, because I think that there's a faith that we forgot about. I don't mean you forgot your faith. You're here, you're in church. I'm talking to church people. I'm like, so glad you're here. Happy Father's Day, happy Son's Day, happy Daughter's Day, all of it. I'm like, it's great. But I believe that there's a faith inside of you that is ready to rise up that you don't even know is there. You forgot about it. Maybe it had its glimpse when you were here in the baptism tank and you got baptized and you came up and that faith was there. Maybe it had a glimpse when you first gave your life to Christ and that faith was raging and it was on fire and it was ready to go. But since then it has been set to the side and forgotten about. It's not gone. It's not dead. It's dormant. And I want to call back to life that spot in our faith, that part of our faith, and even that area to come back and not be forgotten, but be on the forefront of our tongues and our mind as we live our life. Let me take you to the Word of God. Ephesians chapter 4, starting in verse 1. We're going to read verses 1 through 7. Believing that some of us this morning can find that forgotten faith. Walk out with that spark we once had, or that pep in our step that we need. Therefore, a prisoner of the Lord, this is Paul writing, just real quick, he's literally in prison because of his faith. So he's writing as a prisoner of the Lord. I believe he's dual meaning that though, because he is decided to be a bondservant with Christ, but he is also in a literal prison. And he's writing his therefore, if you go read the verses before and see what are they there for. When you read the scriptures and you see that, just remember there's something being said before. Anyways, his therefore is because he was just talking about being filled with the Spirit. We talked about it previous weeks, especially last week, filled with the Spirit. So, therefore, Paul, he's writing, he's saying this, I urge you to walk, everybody say walk. Walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called. Did you know this morning you have been called? That there's an assignment for you today, that there's a purpose for you today, for this week. With all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing one another in love, and eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in a bond of peace. For there is one body and one Spirit, just as you and I were called to one hope that belongs to your call, which is one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. That's a lot of ones and alls, okay? But grace was given to each one of us according to the measure of Christ's gift. You were called. The text is saying, would we walk and would we live in a manner worthy to which God has called us? And what he has called us to is oneness in who our Father is, in our hope, in our faith, in our love, in our unity, in our peace. And then he reminds us that the reason that we're able to walk in a manner worthy of our calling with oneness of hope, peace, love, with gentleness and humility and with patience is because God, who's the greatest Father, anyone can amen that? God, who's the greatest Father, gives us a measure on a platter over into our lives, a measure of grace, which allows us to overcome all the junk that is in us and all the flesh that wants to fly off the handle or get upset or be mad or to respond in a way we shouldn't. All of that junk gives us grace not to walk and act on that, but to walk in a manner worthy of which we've been called. And we have been called, his righteousness. And we have been called gentle. And we have been called humble. And we have been called peacemakers. I believe the solution to finding this forgotten faith is more dad jokes. No, it's not. It's not dad jokes such as, did you hear about the rancher who had 97 cows? He went out and rounded them up, and he had 100. Some of you don't get it, but it's okay. It's not that good, but it's kind of good. I don't believe the solution is dad jokes such as, why do bees have sticky hair? Why? Because they use honeycombs. You get it? Like, it's a honeycomb, it's a honey, it's a bee. Comb, you comb your hair with a comb. Yeah. That was a sweet joke. Yes, it was. When you're contemplating whether or not to tell that joke, just leave it be. All right. I don't believe the solution is jokes like, what kind of tree fits in your hand? Palm tree. Again, when approaching a joke like that, you should just leave it over there. I do believe, however, the solution to finding forgotten faith is simply walking in a manner that you've been called to walk in. Acting, let's say it like this, acting as if we really are the righteousness of Christ and we really are sent to this earth that other people might know who Jesus is. I think even to go so far that if you're a rotten person in this room, maybe like me, that you could begin to walk in a manner worthy of what God has called you. Even as you walk, you know that what you should be doing is wickedness because that's what you really want to do, but you're choosing not to do wickedness and you're choosing to walk in what is like Christ. And even as we do that and we're thinking, you know what, this isn't really what I want to do. I don't really want to raise my hands. I don't really want to stop on the side of the road and meet a homeless guy and give him money. I don't really want to do that. That even as we walk out what is like Christ, though we may not want to, we do it, it begins to change who we are. And even when we are so far away in our emotions from wanting to do something, we choose to do it, it begins to change inside of us. And what I think we find is forgotten faith. Faith from old. Faith from previous experiences. Faith back when we used to not care how loud we were singing and who was around us and who cared. Faith like you're in the car by yourself. Faith like telling those dad jokes. It says we walk in a manner worthy of our calling. And when we do, we discover gentleness. You know, the world sells us a product so many times, and especially to men in our society, of what it's like to be a man. And I'll just tell you this, whatever the product is the world's selling, by the way of their marketing or the imaging or what they're trying to put out, it's lies from the devil because it's from the world. Because the truth in the Word of God says this. It says that we should mark what is great by humility, by gentleness, by patience, by loving one another, by unity, by peace. What a market would be for me if a few years from now people were asking my son, what's your dad like? And he was able to say, he's humble and he's gentle and he's patient. Read the text. And he loves people and he maintains unity and he brings peace. I would be honored. Luckily, he can't talk, so he can't tell you how I am right now. I got a couple more years to get my act straight. But that's not what they would put on a commercial to play during the ball game. During the commercial, during the ball game, if you have a beer and you're on the beach by yourself, then you're a man and you're doing it right. Who are you leading then? No hate on the beer and no hate on the beach, but just saying that's what they sell, right? I love the beach to an extent. Then you got sand all over you and then you're like, why am I at the beach? But, it's pretty nonetheless. But when they're selling the product to men in the room, they don't say, sit at your table with your family in the midst of just everyone talking too much and being a little bit too chaotic and hearing about all of their day and taking all the crap. And it's like, okay, all this stuff happening and you already paid too much for food and then they all ate it and you didn't get enough of it. That's just how it was. And you're like, oh no, I got plenty. I ate before I came, but you didn't eat before you came. You're hungry. And then in the midst of that, being gentle, patient, and bringing unity to what's happening at the table. That's not the product that they're selling. But what I'm saying is, that is walking in the manner of which we were called. And here's the thing, is when we're walking as whether you're male or female in the room, as we're walking, we're all hoping we had a little bit more faith. And the way to get it is not fighting hard enough. Just walking out the one thing that you already know God has called you to do. What's the one thing you already know that he called you to do? Walk in that and watch this forgotten faith begin to bloom in your life and bring more fruit than you thought before. Watch what was buried deep. Begin to bloom and bring fruit, not just to you, but to your family. That's the thing about being a father. What happens through you ends up in your family. And that can be a great blessing when we walk in a manner worthy of our calling. Not fake it till we make it. Not lie. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, what is the next step of obedience that God has called us to we can walk in? What does it look like if God has already said that we are worthy? If God has already said that he's given us what we need, what does it look like to walk in that instead of walking in the purpose that everyone else wants to make for us? You find out what's inside of you when those extreme situations happen. We were in the living room this week, and it was our pre-bath time routine, which there's like so many routines, little things and stuff. But at our house, before bath time is like a really intense, fun playtime, all right? And at least one of the three of us is completely naked. It's usually Maverick. And that naked person is running around a lot, all right? Like again, it's typically Maverick. And it's just really fun because, he doesn't have his diaper on and he feels like extra free, you know what I'm saying? And there's lots of jumping and I don't want to say the word flopping. It's not really quite describing what it is. He's doing a lot of rolling and things like that, all right? And it can get kind of rowdy during that time. And he was on the couch and he was jumping and I had stepped into the other room and just looked away for a second. Lisette was there and so she's got him and they're jumping and playing. I think I went to get something out of the washing machine or in the lunchroom or whatever. I don't know what I went to do. Just grabbed something really quick and I was bringing it back. And just as quick as I could grab it and start bringing it back, all of a sudden all of the fun turned into all of the tears. And he fell this week. He fell off the couch and smashed his face right on his nose on this metal coffee table that we have. And I heard like the hit, and then, you hear the hit, and then it's the 2 seconds of nothing, and then like, bah! He's screaming. I don't remember what mom was doing, like if she was screaming or crying, or I don't know. It was like, but in that moment, I just beeline straight over to him as fast as I can. I grab his head and I pray over him right there. And my wife's like, how's he doing? And I'm like, he's healed. And we look at him, he has an actual crease on his nose. And we're both like, dude, that kid's nose is broke. Am I a nurse? No. Is my wife? Yes. Does that make me a half nurse? Absolutely does. It absolutely does. I have been in close proximity with the medical field for nearly 1 decade. Ask me medical questions, I will gladly give you terrible advice about them. But we're both looking at it, and we're like, we think the little guy just like broke his nose. There's like a little dead-on crease in there from where he smashed it. And so I just put my thumb right on it, and I just begin to pray. This is the forgotten faith, all right? This is, you don't have the amount of time that has lapsed between him falling and me beginning to pray over him is maybe 3 or 4 seconds. I ran from the laundry room into there. Ask my wife. And I just begin to pray, Lord, unbreak it. Five seconds later after that, the crease, gone. Like a notable crease, not like a little red mark, like his nose is indented in. I remember looking at it, thinking, oh no. How do you fix a 1.5-year-old broken nose? Not easily. I don't know if you ever broke your nose before. There's a cast that goes on it. They snap that sucker back. It's not good. Crease gone. 20 more seconds pass. She's like, how's he doing? I'm touching all over his nose, like as hard as is appropriate for a little kid to be touched on their nose. He's laughing. Yeah, he was. We go straight back to the fun. I'm like, hey, put that kid in the bath, put him to bed quick, man. Like, it's just too dangerous around here right now. If you have a kid, like you can be as careful as you want and you can be there, hover all you want and do whatever, but they can just trip in the blink of an eye. Sometimes you catch them and sometimes you don't. But what you want in those moments is you want your forgotten faith. I wasn't walking around the house doing prayer circles beforehand. No, we were running around having a good time. You want your forgotten faith to be what springs up and puts hands on your family and declares right then, healing will take place. God will move. He is at work. I'm walking in a manner worthy of my calling. I don't care what you were doing the night before. I don't care who you were with or what you were smoking or drinking or what place you were at. This is not the moment where you're justifying to God, God, can I be good enough for you to move? You'll never be good enough for him to move. Unless you decide he already made you good enough for him to move. And in this, it's like, I'm just standing in a manner worthy of what you've called me. You've said that I have the gifts of the Spirit. So I place the hands and I declare what I have. And to my fathers that are in the room, I implore you to walk in a manner worthy of what you've been called. You have been called Father. After our Father who is in heaven, who is the most gentle and the most patient and brings the most unity, is always bearing in love, is always steadfast, never lets us down. And so I implore and I say, let's walk. Men, let's walk in a manner worthy of what we've been called. Let's make our families proud. Let's make our Father in heaven proud. Let's be the men of God that he has called us to be. Not based on what happened before. Not trying to justify our past. No one needs to justify. God has already justified our past. But we stand in where we are in our present now. And we walk to our future. That's where we walk. That our children and those around us. And before I was an actual baby daddy, birthed my own, there were lots of kids that were around. So to my men in the room that haven't made their own yet, there's people watching. You're fathering somebody. To the men in the room, even that have their own kids, there's others that are looking to you that don't have dads or do have dads or have crummy dads that are hoping that you're going to speak truth to them and are hoping that you'll be a man of God that's worthy of being watched. And others will walk after us. So let's live with that in mind.
I hope you were so encouraged by that word, but my hope and my prayer is that you would take that word and you would carry it throughout your day. That you would allow that word right there to not only impact just this moment, but to impact tomorrow and to impact the next week and to impact the next month and the next year in your family, and allow it to just spread all over your life. Do not leave this moment just being a moment. It is so much more than that, and I'm excited to hear the testimonies about how God is going to move faithfully in your life. And isn't God so faithful? He faithfully moves in everyone's lives. And in a way that my wife and I have seen God move is through our finances. And why he moves is because we choose to partner our finances with our faith, and we choose to give. And so maybe today is your day to begin giving. There's a couple of ways that you can give. You can go to authentic.church and give under the Give tab, or you can give through Venmo. Hey, I love you, and I cannot wait to see you guys next week.